Hey everybody, welcome to episode something like 78-ish, I think. We're coming up on 80, I think, if anyone's counting the episodes anymore of Tactical Crouch. I'm back, I'm KickedTripod, joined by Yiska and Volamel, the famed host, Yiska.
Jesus Christ.
Doing the Lord's work on Monday. Thanks for filling in for me, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. It was
great.
Interestingly challenging to always keep like the flow in the back of your mind, and then like the production and everything, while trying to find the points that you want to address. I probably would have needed like a way more preparation and like a notebook to just write down stuff, because I felt like a lot of my processing power was just like going towards hosting. So
you gotta go. You can't tell. Don't tell chat that. It's one button, really easy. I just coasted. Call it in.
Really isn't.
No prep before or after. Just kind of, show up, press a button, wing it. Easy. Yeah. That's what we want chat to think and know. So, well, either way, great job. A lot of people have said really nice things about the show on Monday, so that's great.
Nice.
We are back though. For those just tuning in, housekeeping, everybody's favorite. We record live at 11 a.m. Pacific times on Mondays for the recap show and Wednesdays for the preview show. We're also supported by our patrons and our subs and just really kind and nice people. If you want to support the show, you can get cool perks like access to our patron-only Discord channel, invites to game nights, and more. Speaking of game nights, we've got one coming up Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. Usually what we do is we kick back, grab a few drinks, play some Quiplash, whatever other games. I want to play that one-line joke game again. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. So make sure to come hang out with us for that on Friday. Other than that, follow us and send us your thoughts and questions on Twitter at @tactical_crouch. And of course, if you missed the show live, you're hearing it somewhere else, you're like, where else can I listen to this? You can download the podcast anywhere you can get podcasts, YouTube, iTunes, Podcasts Addict, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere. Just search for Tactical Crouch. Other than that, let's get started. Go into the news. News brought to you by our patron producers, Battle Crab Made, Pin, Lolshin, Charlie L, Audio Compass, and Pork Chop Sammy. That's a lot. That's a lot of patron producers. Y'all are a bunch of badasses. Thank you so much for your support again. That's patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Did you guys talk about Race the Mayhem?
We did a little bit, yeah. But
okay.
Never hurts to talk more about it, I think.
Well, let's review it a little bit then. So, Yiska, you and Maid came up with a fun little competition called Race the Mayhem, where you each committed to certain health goals based on a per mayhem win scale. In your case, you're losing 1 kilogram?
1 kilogram, so like 2.2 pounds, roundabout.
Per mayhem, Florida mayhem win.
Yes.
I'm doing that as well. I committed 1 pound per mayhem win, so a little bit less. And Joe, you threw you into the ring too, right?
Yeah. Your boy's been a little thick for too long. We're trying to drop some pant sizes, trying to drop some weight. So yeah, fasting, eating clean, or hitting it hard.
Awesome. Well, I yesterday sat down and decided, you know what? We need to band together, brothers and sisters. And we threw up some pretty cool, a nice little seal. You can see it on the stream. Got some cool, you can get a cool workout shirt, workout tank, a sticker, bit.ly/race the mayhem. You can go there, check out. There's some pretty cool merch and stuff. It looks pretty cool. And I like how the seal ended up coming out. So it's you don't have to participate in Race the Mayhem to get a shirt though, if you just want to Race the Mayhem and get a cool shirt, go ahead and do that. Other than that, though, good luck to us all. We haven't really talked about how we're going to track it throughout the season because ultimately it's at the end of the season. It's not like, oh, Mayhem won. Now
I'm trying to make play-ins with my weight. I want to equate weight loss to wins, and then I want to make play-ins. That's the goal.
Sure.
Fair. Yeah, that's great. I love it. So
unlike Chengdu.
Exactly.
Ooh. We'll keep you updated on how we're going through all of that. We also have a Race the Mayhem channel in Yiska's Discord, discord.me/Yiska out. If you want to get in there, see some motivation. I've been talking with a lot of people about CrossFit. There's some people who are interested there, and I've been doing that for about a little over a year. And so lots of great ways to get in shape in different ways than maybe you're used to or you think you need to. And as always, consult a physician, consult a medical professional in what is healthy for you, whether it's workouts or weight loss goals or whatever. But it's always great to have a community to share your goals with and track yourself with. And for that, you can definitely find that there in that Discord. All right. Yiska, you have an Instagram as well, don't you? You set up an Instagram just for this.
Yes, I own the amazing Instagram account Gym Scrims. So the thing is, I'll probably only start with going to the gym next month, starting next month probably. And before that, I'll probably get into some swimming. Wanted to see if I find some time tomorrow, but definitely this weekend. And then, yeah, just post a couple of pictures there, maybe some progress. I'm debating if we just make that like a community account, and if you're to the gym and you're participating in Race the Mayhem, then you just send me the pictures and I'll just get them up there.
Sweet. All right, that's it. That's enough of our PSAs. Again, bit.ly/Race the Mayhem. But we do want to get into the upcoming week. We're going into week 3 of the Overwatch League. Definitely very light last week, only 4 matches. Still a little bit lighter week this week. Only 6 matches over the weekend. Going to Washington, D.C., and because I was kind of gone Monday and some other things, I do want to hear, Joe, Yiska, just kind of like your thoughts on, do you think any plans on seeing any changes here? Is there anything that you expect to see differently? These are all teams that we've seen play at least once. So there are no surprises that you're expecting? Otherwise, it wouldn't be a surprise, I suppose.
No, I don't think so. I think Brig might see a small increase, but I think the teams that are already playing it probably will keep playing it. But yeah, there again, I think everything's just going to stay the same. I think everybody kind of knows what they want to play. And it just kind of depends on what iteration of the team shows up. Like if they're on their game, then they're just going to stick to what they've been playing. And if not, could vary. But yeah, I don't think anything's going to change week by week.
So then going into this next week, Yiska, there's, we're seeing these same teams now for at least the second time, if not the third time. Is there anything in particular, without getting into like specific matchups, that you're going to be looking at from any of these teams, kind of see? I know for me, like really watching London, they had really polarizing performances where they seemed to have one that was, I don't know, kind of like, oh, this team can hang, and then, they get 3-0'd by, it was Paris, right? And then you're like, oh, maybe this team isn't very good. Is there anything like that you're looking for to kind of solidify?
Yeah. So one thing I'm definitely looking at is just like, due to like we had a prior understanding of what they look like, or at least I had, in terms of like what I believe to be like a power level that's representative of their performance. And then of course like the actual matches then are a heavy factor where you reevaluate. Now with these next matches coming in, like currently, like you don't have that much to go on, but like I feel like a lot of those teams, like for instance, New York Excelsior against Fusion. That gives us an idea of hierarchy, right? Paris against Washington. That's a hierarchy game. So we got a lot of these games where we can, when you divide the 20 teams into groups of 4, I think currently, like, we can say, okay, good, bad, and then something in between, maybe. But because of how the matches fall next week, I think we will have a more granular or a better understanding where those power levels lie, unless, and that is still a distinct possibility for me, there are matchup specific idiosyncrasies where, like, maybe a Leicester team plays better against a good team because they match up well against them, something like that. That probably won't be answered by the data we will get from next weekend, but otherwise, I think we'll get a much clearer picture.
Cool. Well, I'm excited, and I'm really excited about this first match, which is going to be between, it's actually our match of the week, and it's the first match of the whole thing. We're in Washington, D.C. for this one, so the Washington Justice do have the seventh man, Yiska. They've got the seventh man with them on their team, but the match of the week is going to be the New York Excelsior versus the Philadelphia Fusion. If you've been watching, or if you haven't been watching the last 2 weeks, the both of these teams walked away undefeated, only dropping 1 map in each of their 2 games, or between their 2 games total. So as we go into week 3, Joe, who do you think has the upper hand going into this match? We've seen interesting looks from both teams for sure.
Yeah, I think New York in general, I came out of week 1 with New York kind of seeing their progress, their new coaching staff, their new players. Like this isn't the same old New York, the same old tired, passive New York. They do want to be a little bit more proactive. I do expect them to kind of come out and play some weird stuff. Depending on the maps, like we could see more dive, Horizon, Temple, stuff like that. But again, I think it's going to be a stylistic matchup where Philly is still kind of like planting their feet and saying, no, we're going to play Poco. We're going to play a fair amount of Orisa still. At least on, Sunday, they didn't play as much of it, but, still a good amount on control. But yeah, generally, like, kind of the innovators versus like kind of standard play in Philly. And that's where I kind of have to give a skeptical hippo eye at New York here, because there's a lot of trying going on with New York. They're trying, Zarya on control. They're playing a little bit more dive. If Philly can answer those questions, what does New York look like? And also, where is Libero? Like, this kid has been an absolute stud for 2 years. And now we're playing Who Are You, who both through the eye test and at least statistically isn't really performing.
True.
It's a little weird. Apparently that was going on, and that's, how they've been practicing. So obviously you want to kind of stick to your guns and what you've been practicing. But yeah, I really don't see New York taking this. I'd be interested in seeing how close it is, because that's still kind of up in the air for me, because New York is also a team that, I wouldn't say struggled in putting away London, but, dropped the map and control was close. That doesn't really lend a whole lot of security for me, a lot of confidence. We can talk about day one jitters, it's the first game. I give you that. Then they beat up on Boston, so that's really not like a case point. Now they have to play a arguably top 5 team right now. Granted, we haven't seen a ton of play from Philly, but on paper they look stellar. So what do they look like now? I think this is going to be a big litmus test for both teams, but especially New York.
Fair enough. I do. So do you think that any of this, like, this is maybe the conspiracy or skeptic?
Oh, should I get my tinfoil?
Yeah, there's a few things that are really interesting about week 1. Number 1, Who Are You? Actually, I need to double check this. Who Are You just came of age over the off season, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
So fresh blood. They're the teams that they were playing, while they aren't necessarily bad teams. Well, you could argue Boston is, but I don't think do you think like there was some just confidence there to like, you know what, let's give Who Are You the look. He's young.
So.
People are excited to see him. We're not going to drop these games. We're in New York for the opening. Like, let's just give him the time.
No, I pretty sure Who Are You was seeing a good amount of play, even in the preseason, which surprised me.
Yeah, a lot of time in scrims. That's the biggest theory that speaks against him just being a like a
kind of like a style pick. Yeah. I think there might have been some confidence, especially with like how. I mean, it's tough to say because we haven't seen them we haven't really seen them play against like a difficult team. Like London came in, there's a lot of questions there. We still really don't know how to feel about them. At least I don't. I won't speak for everybody. And yeah, this is where I'm gonna start to see, like, we've seen them play against, a middle of the pack team in London, Boston obviously being in the bottom two. Now we get to see them play against people who kind of should give them a run for their money. So this will just be like a test for them. If they can beat them, then I'm all on board. But I think this is going to be a tough task to put Philly away.
Interesting.
Who has the upper hand for you?
For me, NYXL. I think the Fusion looked way more vulnerable in their matches than especially against Washington than NYXL did. They could have easily lost control the first if Carpe doesn't decide to just like take over the last set map. Those were very close. I think generally that there were some jitters in that. I feel like Fusion wasn't playing up to their level just yet in the first match, and then looked more confident in the second one. Like we talked about it a little bit in the review show, that it seemed like, especially like the back line needed to find themselves a little bit, and then it looked like much more dominating against the Mayhem. Of course, like these guys are rookies, so a game is fine. Like to not be at 100%. So I think this will be an amazing match for sure. I just wonder how cohesive of a fight they will put up against the NYXL. And while I don't agree with the betting odds just now, but it's not far away. I would say 60% NYXL.
What are the odds?
65-35 NYXL.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there is a lot. There are legs to stand on with that argument from Saturday of last week. Philly did look shaky. Like there's an argument to be made that they probably shouldn't have won that match against Justice. They probably didn't deserve it after that Temple of Anubis absolute throw and just sloppy play overall. Yeah, I would say that Justice could have easily beaten them, but I think they looked like a different team coming into Sunday. I think they completely just dispatched Florida. That could be a stylistic matchup because we know that Florida, is running an interesting back line. So there's room for that, but I saw a lot of improvement, specifically kind of deviating away from how much Orisa they've been playing. And I think that that's probably for the best. That could be map dependent. I'm not entirely too sure just yet, but I hope it's not. Not to say that Orisa is bad, but I think she's more dependent than I think people are giving her credit for. So,
sure.
I'm pretty confident in Philly here. I'd be interested to see. It'll be a close match either way, but I think Philly's got this pretty good.
So we did see some surprise roster changes, I think, from both teams. Philadelphia Fusion, we saw Poco, no Fury. For me, that was surprising. I understand Poco's diva is still good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's Fury.
Yeah, it is bizarre.
And
struggle to come up with like excuses on why they're not. It could be a lot of different things, but we have no idea, to be completely honest. Could be communication, could be that Poco does something intangible for the team that Fury just can't. I have not a clue on why you wouldn't play him.
And I think that kind of goes to, no Fury. We saw Ivy over EQO, which is less surprising to me, except for the fact that he was their main in stage 4, right?
Sure.
So we know EQO played a ton of May. Ivy, I don't believe, played a ton of May, if I remember looking correctly. So, but again, we could say at the very least, Toronto left Ivy pretty underutilized, I think.
Could say he left him out in the cold.
Oh, and that's
a crickets. That's a...
Oh, this thing isn't working. Boo. Boo. There you go. So, yeah. So, I mean, just kind of weird little quirks that, I mean, I think we expected probably not to see Sabioli the full time. I think that made sense, but no Libero. I don't think that was what we expected either.
Not at all.
So, Joe, for you, do you think the fusion with Poco is the best look for them right now with this meta?
I think for the style that they want to play and what they've been practicing, that's kind of how I'm theorizing why they're playing so much Poco, is that they want to play Orisa on control. They want to play Orisa on certain like hybrid point A's and certain 2CP point A's and point B's. And that's kind of how what homework they've given Poco. It's like, okay, you need to learn Orisa. This is what, the scrim meta has been. It's starting to kind of dwindle. It's starting to go away with how powerful and how aggressive divas can be. I think that power dynamic's going to shift, and maybe next week, maybe week after, or, the third or fourth game that Philly plays, we should see Fury start to rotate in. And obviously meta changes in hero pools come in at that point. So this just could be temporary. They could be competing for starting spots. It is bizarre, right? Like I can't understate that. Like Fury is a sick player, but I think just for the style that they're aiming to play, for the practice they've put in, I would imagine that they've probably played with Poco a little bit more because of the Orisa, and because of that, that's why they're playing him. So,
yeah. Also, like what this told me, and that's kind of interesting. So let me first introduce a concept to the listeners. There's a phenomenon in Overwatch, and it's as old as European Overwatch, and it's called the French Mafia. The French Mafia is basically once one French individual, either coach or player, knows anything, the entire hive mind of French players knows everything. Now, if you guys recall, like, Poco made like a tweet and asked like, who am I going to see at the arena? La la la. And Hib replied, the bench. Now, that implies to me that that Poco is not part of the French Mafia, which is quite interesting. But because otherwise, they would have already, telepathically known that he was going to play. Unless it was a debate, in which case, French Mafia, you're smarter than I am.
You never know with the French Mafia, man. They're sneaky.
Indeed, yeah.
That's a really interesting. I think, I'm surprised. It's so funny. Our Twitch chat right now is like, my fantasy is in shambles because I picked Fury. I've had him in. He was my first pick, and I was like, oh no. Was he your first pick?
Yes. No. I was like, there's no way Philly doesn't play Fury. Yeah. Give me Fury. Give me Fleta. Oh crap! Coronavirus. Yeah, this was a rough fantasy week for me. Chris, and I had Fate. I'm like, dude, Fate can't lose. Like, he's got to play Rhine. Doesn't play. Plays one game of Orisa, so I don't even get like the handicap 50 points. I got 13 points from Fate.
Christopher and have a one-fingered message for you. I can't play it for you right now, but I'm sure you could read between the lines and find it out. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Anyone with EQ in chat also like
see that one's tough because there's so many DPS on Philly. It's just like I mean Carpe's probably the best bet, but everybody else is like I don't even know if you're gonna see play. So
we are seeing some really, and I like this. We are seeing different players on different maps.
True.
And that's
Totally.
I think that's great. I think that's honestly a healthier version of the game.
Yeah.
But not Fury.
It's bizarre.
Just not Fury.
Like,
I don't know.
Oh no!
Lilac is like, I had Libero. I mean, I wouldn't have picked Libero right away. I would just say that. I'm
Such a safe pick.
Probably would have.
I mean, I would have later on, but I would imagine he wouldn't go past like 3 or 4 rounds before being picked.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
come to my fantasy TED Talk sometime. So, Yiska, for you, before we kind of move on here, you believe NYXL are gonna win this by about a 10% spread, or I guess 20% spread, 60-40.
Yeah, like for me, in my mind, Philly is the game with the higher peaks and valleys, and
Sure.
NYXL just like they got a little bit more volatile in their level. I think through Who Are You and Hotba. But I think generally, like, I think, for instance, Nene or Sebiobi can't quite take a game over like Kape can if he's on.
Sure.
I think Hotba probably has a little bit more breakout potential than Poco. That's the anti-volatile thing. If they have playing some wild picks, I think DPS pools are equally deep in both rosters. That would actually, if that starts happening, and like if the match starts and we're rolling out on control and they have like weird DPS picks and it's like Libero and Nene on the one side, and then like Hisu can't be, but
he can't play.
Yeah, sadly. But
you got like EQO
Carpe,
and
EQO,
Ivy,
and like Genji Trace or something. That I'm hyped. That I'm like, yeah.
So you actually kind of answered my question, so I don't even need, whatever. It's good. For it. Joe, what about for you though? So on you're the lone Philadelphia Fusion pick here.
Yeah.
To win, which is, again, not abnormal for the show. You pick against Yiska, and I'm the death,
The deciding vote.
the Death Reaper. Oh my God, why can't I? The Grim Reaper. Jeez.
Oh.
Could not remember. I'm the Grim Reaper for.
I was like, I don't know what he's.
I'm the Grim Reaper for these picks because I always side against you. It seems like, and you end up getting those picks right whenever I do.
I mean, I got Gladiators wrong week 1. Come on now.
So I mean, I'm just saying.
We'll see. I don't know. It's like we've iterated. Like it's going to be close. I'm pretty sure. Like I don't think anybody's going to like, oh, one team is going to smash, unless you're like, Reddit Flare is NYXL or either Philly, right? Like Flare checks out, but this should be close. I just have it, the odds flipped. I think it's 60-40 Philly for a lot of the same reasons.
So if you're Christopher this weekend, you're preparing for NYXL. Let's get Coach Volamel in here for a second. What are you most concerned about? What's your biggest weakness against an NYXL roster?
I think depending on the maps, we haven't seen Philly, and I can't imagine Philly's been playing a lot of this in scrims. They haven't really been playing against dive all that much. And New York has shown a propensity to play dive on certain maps, whether it's Horizon, whether it's Temple. We saw, Hanamura and Blizzard World come out for some dive. So there's a possibility that could be thrown at you. And I think that preparing the players as best you can and giving them like proper game plans to counter that, whether it be different hero picks or, a different allocation of resources, would be where I would be the most worried about. I don't think the aggression from New York can't be matched. I think Philly day 2 looked really a strong, aggressive team, not like overly aggressive like a Valiant where Gig's just going in across ponds and mouse wanting all the way back to his team. But it's calculated. Sato looks very, very strong. Obviously, Mono's no slouch either, but both teams did kind of go a little bit overly aggressive. So I think in general, it's just marking the dive, making sure you have an answer for it, and executing on that. Other than that, I think they can beat them in the head-to-head. And I got Philly. Philly looks good. I'm very, very excited.
Sweet. Well, that's our match of the week for week 3. Can't wait to watch it. Definitely one to miss. Probably the best match we've had in Overwatch League so far.
Yeah.
At least on paper at a time. Let's go into our match of the week. WEAK. And that is going to be the Houston Outlaws versus the Boston Uprising. Oh, sorry. I don't think Dream's in here, but man, sorry I had to do that. Do you dirty there. The Houston Outlaws and Boston Uprising both have had really rough starts. I don't think that the Uprising rough start was super surprising. They played NYXL when they opened up, and, they're largely rated to be last in the league. However, the Houston Outlaws, there's a lot of optimists, including some of us on the show. We're optimistic about the Houston Outlaws, and they didn't take a map in Philadelphia, and it did not look very good. So the battle of the bottom is what this essentially becomes so far. Man, just unfortunate. So, Yiska, in your mind, where are these two teams right now failing? Where other teams are doing, I would say, relatively well. I don't think anybody else stands out as a quote-unquote bad team right now. And I know bad is a very generalized term, and I'll probably get schooled in linguistics on using that. But let's just say that Houston and Boston have put themselves in a tier of their own so far of the teams that have played at the bottom of the team. At the bottom of the league, I would say. So what do you think separates them?
So let's start with Houston. So of course, like I was as surprised as everyone else because like as it stands, I reached out to a couple of teams that are apparently scrimming Houston. They all said that they weren't this bad in preparation for this match. Especially like the first one against the Washington Justice, it was like there was just no cohesion. And certainly some of it is down to flu. Not all of it can be ascribed to that, but there was definitely a lack of team cohesion and execution of their game plans. And I will also say there was no outstanding DPS player that clutched it out for them, like, for instance, a DK could on a lesser team like Fuel, if you want to call them a lesser team. I think that's also the reason why I think that Houston will take this match, because their underperformance, from the information that I have available to me, was an underperformance. It wasn't an performance up to par what they've been able to play in the preseason. Now, if they continue to play like this, and we have to keep in mind, flus don't go away, especially if you travel a lot and cannot sleep and have to scrim. So that problem isn't solved next week, or next weekend. But if they don't improve, of course, I will have to readjust my evaluation, because then, like, your prior, of course, it means nothing anymore. And then you have to work with that. For Boston, they don't have star power, and they don't look like a cohesive and decisive unit like other teams are. Like, something that's stood out to me for Washington was at least surprising. They are, once again, like, which team was like this last year? Like a little bit like Titans, this style, or in season 1, Philly, where they take you to fights that you didn't expect them to take. Where they just, like, at weird times will just, like, run into you, almost like everyone's, like, has, like, these rules of engagement, so to speak, in terms of, like, okay, this is the wall, and this is the next step, and once this is cleared, and just, like, boost into it. I think Houston was trying to do that as well, but couldn't execute it sufficiently. I think they lacked a lot of aggression. wasn't particularly fond of their rotations either, especially against Mayhem. They gave up valuable position points on especially icon walls. I remember like giving BQB the upper hand against Blase frequently. So you don't have a transcendental talent on hit scan like some other teams have, like XZI, Decay, but you also don't have you don't give them a better or easier time by giving them better positioning. So if they can improve upon that, I looked at the replays. I don't think even the Brig Lucio was particularly the problem. I would have liked to see how that pans out when it happens, because one thing that Mayhem did was they just had Chris sit on BQB the entire time and therefore favorably trade. And there's only so much you can do when you're caught out with your pants down as a single McCree, right? So, yeah, overall, this is, I think, again, a 60-40 for Houston.
Does it not surprise you to have not seen Linkser at all, being kind of like in season 1 he was the anti-Widow, right? He was the Widowmaker who, while he wasn't leading in stats, he shut down the other team's Widowmaker. And when you have maps like Junkertown, even King's Row to a lesser extent, isn't that, Joe, somebody that you want to or were expecting to see, or did you think that Blase was the right play?
No, I kind of had this kind of Linkser's meta. I assumed that he would come in and do very well on hit scan, and I assumed Blase was probably going to be their May. I didn't expect Hydration to fill that role as much as he is, and if he was, then it could have been kind of like a Poco area where he's playing May on some maps, but on certain points they want to run something else, and that's why Hydration is played on those maps. He can flex to other heroes, he can play something else, he can, swap roles. Obviously you can't do that in the game, I don't think, but in general the DPS pool for Houston should be a lot bigger, and currently it doesn't feel like it. The fact that they're not running Widow on Havana is a little weird. Even on like Junker, did we see them play Junkertown?
They Outlaws played Junkertown against the Justice.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the aim god like on a flank.
Yes, the flank. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We saw a little bit of Blase Widow, but immediately kind of swapped off it. So I think it's I don't know, to be completely honest. I don't know if they're trying to find their feet, so they're sticking to one comp. I'm not sure.
Also, real talk, like as much as Linksa was the anti-Widow in season 1, Linksa was always also the anti-Linksa, for being honest. Like he was always an inconsistent player, and that goes back to okay, Linksa's right. Okay.
This goes back to like Dignitas, right?
Yes, like even before that creation stuff, like where sometimes like at Takeover 1 he was already like belting people's heads off, and at the next day like just like having maybe, I don't know if it's nerf issues or what it is, like inconsistency is not as transparent, but confidence is certainly a thing. And it's a problem that I'm not sure, like that needs to be addressed if you want this player to play. Like you got to give him confidence somehow, and I'm not sure if that's on the coaching stuff necessarily, even though that's part of their job, but also on himself. And then maybe like, we've seen stuff like in esports, if people are familiar with the Astralis transformation, where a team that notoriously tilted in high pressure situations now became their one of their most valued aspects now, that they're just like rock solid and untiltable in most situations. And the same is true, for instance, OG in Dota 2. What do they have in common? The same performance coach. I think her name is Mia Stelberg or something. I'm probably mispronouncing the name, but like just I'm not sure if they have a performance coach, but that would be something like at least consultancy I would maybe look at and have him do if he's not participating in scrims much anyway, and then slowly incorporate him maybe. Possible that I'm talking out of pocket here and they're already doing that stuff, or they have reshuffled their hero pool where it's no longer required. But it certainly seems like in the build-up of this team, like if you say May and if you say Widow, you say Linkser for Views and Outlaws. And that doesn't seem to be the most advantageous decision for them right now. So
I think with a similar kind of mind frame going into like League of Legends, I think you could kind of see in a weird way, Linkser's career might kind of replicate Golden Glue's, where he, is obviously has potential, but just constantly just not playing up to his potential on like the big stages where he goes into like the lower amateur seasons and gets pretty far, but drops the big match, then goes to Korea, trains a whole bunch, fits up, comes back and looks like a starting mid laner, like a solid mid lane, player. If I were, I don't know the whole situation, right? I'd like to see Linkser kind of almost emulate Taimo here and say, okay, you know what? I need some time away. I need to figure out what I want to do. Do some soul searching. If you want to play, okay, fine. Build up some confidence in contenders. Maybe the owl stage is too much right now. Go away, build up your confidence, get some play time in, and see where it takes you. Because it's obvious he's good, right?
Yeah.
It's obvious like he should be playing, at least historically, looking at his performance. So it's not a play thing, I don't think.
Yeah. It's also being a person that experiences a lot of anxiety and maybe even panic. I feel like, and I've done so in my life, and I felt like in hindsight, it was more an opportunity than anything else. Perhaps I'm one of the privileged cases where it was possible for me to escape that mindset. But when I came out of it and learned to control it, it felt like a superpower. Like I knew exactly like, okay, this is like I'm standing on the edge of the cliff. I could fall down and I could succumb to anxiety. I could succumb to panic, or this is where I go, and then I just turn around. And now I know how to deal with that beast, that it can never sneak up on me. I knew exactly where it is, right? So once you find that out, you in many situations become aware of it and become immune to that very emotion, or can deal with it in different parts. And I think that should be embraced for every competitor or person overall. And I think if Linkser can master himself there, then he has a future in the Overwatch League. If not, then probably not, we have to say, honestly.
To kind of translate for all the gamers out there that don't, aren't on that same wavelength, what he's saying is you need to scrim your emotions. That's it. It's
Fair
just
enough.
about learning how you feel and then how to kind of, like you said, step back from it.
Which is interesting because did you guys see the Ninja tweet from this morning or yesterday?
Yeah, I don't think I agree understand
with it
the gripe.
So
Okay.
let me find it really quick and just bring everybody up to speed for a second, because
Sure.
the tweet is the phrase "it's just a game" is such a weak mindset. You are okay with what happened, losing, imperfection of a craft. When you stop getting angry after losing, you've lost twice.
Yeah.
There's always something to learn and always room for improvement. Never settle. Yeah. So that was the tweet. I think part of it was taken out of context. I think part of it was applying a competitive mindset to playing a game. Like there's a big difference between me playing McCree on Junkertown and Linkser or whatever, or Widowmaker or
100%.
But I just find it very interesting how those seem to, I don't want to say they conflict, but they definitely, I think, represent two different viewpoints about that competitive mindset that, Yiska, you're talking about this centering, knowing those. I think it's correct here to say knowing those triggers that cause you to tilt or to get in bad emotional spaces or mental spaces.
I think I had much more, and you probably didn't see that clip of him saying that, pretty much the same, but he added on something that I vehemently disagree with. My conception of this is his tool to improve. That doesn't need to be your tool to improve, like this feeling of inadequacy and like feeling of like anger fueling you. You can have other fuels. That works. Oh. What I disliked specifically about his statement, other than the ambiguity and definitely like the vast room of interpretation that people have used to say something that he obviously didn't mean. But what he said was in the clip was, if you are not getting mad, you're a bad person. You're lazy. And that is categorically false. That works for you, and that might be how you work, but it's definitely not like how the average person has to find the motivation in themselves and then figure out, okay, what actually works for me as a motivator, right? Like, do I need the insecurity? Do I need the feeling of security of knowing, okay, if I have a good day, if I have a bad day, in the middle, there's still me, and I'm not influenced by any of the values or like bad or good news. The core of me is still there and still valuable and still has everything that I need. There's other things where you just chip away at your own performance, right? Like where you go about self-improvement and don't look at other people. Some people need specifically, like if you look at the super clips, it's like, well, the real reason for me, and he might have been memeing a little bit with that clip, but he goes like, the real reason to be competitive is like, you don't want to beat your opponent. You want to destroy them. You want to leave them on the battlefield thinking we could have done nothing else and to win this match. Whatever your drive is valid as long as you don't inflict it upon others and like disadvantage them in any way. But yeah, that part of his argument I heavily disliked. Other than the ambiguity, I think a lot of people took it too far to mean like, I don't know, like when I'm sitting on the toilet and playing Farmville, like that's not, of course, not the application here, right? So,
yeah. I love taking things to extremes and slightly out of context, if not completely out of context. It's great. What would gaming be without it? You know? All right. Joe, I didn't get a side from you, though. Who walks away with the win between Boston and Houston?
I think this is a lot. I think this is like marginally closer for me when compared to Yiska. I do think on a healthy day, Outlaws should be able to beat this Boston team pretty easily. Unfortunately, I don't know that you get over the flu that quickly, like was previously mentioned, especially with flying and whatnot. So I think it's going to be kind of a question of who just messes up less, and I still have to give that to Houston, but I think this is going to be a fiesta of sorts. This is going to be messy. This is going to be, again, just whoever can muster up the strength on the day to kind of put the other out. And in that same vein, this is a must win for either of these teams. Like if Boston wants to turn around their narrative, they have to beat Houston. If Houston wants to salvage their narrative, they have to beat Boston.
Yes.
Because if not, I think you can kiss your stocks away. You can kiss the fans. You can talk about morale, especially when you're sick. Like it's rough. That's tough to bring people back into the fold and say, no, you have to stay bought in. Like we have the plan in place. Like this is just, circumstantial. Either way, we talk about Mineral, we talk about Harsha and Dream. Both of these coaching kind of philosophies are kind of up for grabs.
The one thing that's, I think, really interesting to me is I feel like one of these teams needs to win decisively. Otherwise, they both still end up looking bad. If it goes to 5 maps, all that says is that they're very close to bottom tier teams.
Yeah.
Right? Versus a 3-0 one side or another, it's a lot easier to go, okay, Houston had a bad start. Boston had a bad start. They played NYXL in New York for the season opener. So the funny thing is I'm going to be really interested to see how the narratives get crafted based on the final score on that, because I can very much see basically the results meaning nothing if it ends up going to 5.
Well, for me, it's just like Boston is probably trying to prove they're a mid-tier team. They're trying to prove that they're not the worst team. Just by beating Houston, that would already say something. I agree completely. Houston needs to stomp here, unless like Boston visibly looks better. It's not going to be a convincing sentiment, especially with a second match probably also not going in their favor. But then again, like we'll see. It's the 4th game. There's definitely things to turn around, but the flu being still in that team doesn't have me that excited either. It's a really unfortunate situation for everyone involved.
Yeah, that's rough.
All right, we got to keep moving through these. I think we've got one more really interesting match to talk about, and then I think we can kind of jump through that through the rest of these. So match number 3 is going to be the Paris Eternal versus the Washington Justice in Washington, D.C. Let's just re-add that. Another thing to note is, well, actually, hold on. Let's not go there just yet. So both of these teams, I would say, had better to slightly better than expected season openers. Paris Eternal lost a close one to Toronto Defiant before sweeping the Spitfire 3-0, which I don't think many saw happening. On the flip side, the Washington Justice lost a close one to the Fusion before sweeping the Outlaws 3-0. So both teams did quite well. A lot of people are already squeaking Justice up pretty high after their performances here. Joe, who do you think has the upper hand going into this match?
This is another interesting one because we're kind of seeing, Paris receive a minor patch update. They're getting hot fixed with Hanbin kind of coming into the fold. And I think that opens them up to a much wider variety of styles. And I think we have to kind of soft reset how we think about Paris, because even without Hanbin,
is Hanbin not eligible? He's eligible this week, though, right?
He's eligible, yes, this match. So he will debut more than likely against Washington. That's why it's pretty interesting to me, because we kind of have to soft reset that. And even going back to week 1 or their first matches, they didn't look horrible. It was messy. FD God was a standout. Nico looked solid on May. They obviously could only play like one style, and they brought out Sigma and kind of tilted London. I think that was kind of up in the air.
Sure.
So I'm willing to give Paris a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. I think this might be closer than what people expect. I think people are way too high on Washington. Like I don't see it. I think they're like, if we're going to talk about how Paris was one-dimensional, Washington really only found fight wins when Corey could get value on flanks.
Yeah.
Roar didn't look solid. Elliville was fine. Aim God was fine-ish, but again, I think there's problems there, especially with his Temple of Anubis flanks. Like, why not just die? I don't know. I think Paris can come into this if we're going to see their coaching staff succeed. I think they're going to dismantle Washington. But I don't see that necessarily happening, especially this early on. But I'll give a 60-40 Paris vote. I think Paris has enough to squeak by the Justice here at home.
All right. I also believe that Paris is going to squeak this one by. I think it's very close.
I like this.
But I think, and there's one thing that really stood out to me, because I think of Corey very much as like a Decay, in the sense that if you shut down Corey or you shut down Decay, what did LA Valiant do? What did NYXL do? They shut down Decay. They made his day a nightmare. What ended up happening? They lost their matches. Even though Decay is still, he popped off or whatever.
He still somehow found ways to kind of shine through that, but still, to your point, they made his life a nightmare.
But you find a way to sit on Corey. I think you find a way to beat the Justice, and I think that Paris is a good enough team to do that. And so
hopefully,
I think
fingers crossed.
I think it can be done. And I think I'm not a coach, so I don't think I can go much more in depth than that without sounding like an absolute idiot. But I think that they can do it. I think FD God has given a lot of people a lot of issues, especially the DPS players specifically. He's kind of gotten up. He got up into who was it on London? Glister's face quite a bit.
Yeah,
made his day really tough. So we'll see, but I think Paris Eternal are going to look good, assuming that Hanbin doesn't somehow make them look worse,
or he just doesn't see play. Like if he's not on the server, then I don't know. Then I think Washington.
That's a question. I think that is the guiding question: is are they planning with Hanbin? Because if they did plan with Hanbin, that meant that they only played the double shield tank stuff for 1 week, only scrimmed for that. And then beforehand, scrimmed mostly with D.Va, knowing that, okay, let's forget about the first week match and then like play our best strategy starting week 2. Or 3 in this case, right? Or for them, the second
match.
So depending on how you think that goes, I think it's definitely better to play D.Va against Corey on the flank. I think we've seen some great performances by D.Vas shutting down very performance McCrees. Like I'm thinking of Bernard against Nene. So it can be done, and I think it won't be done. I think the Washington Justice is favored here. I'm not sure how much value or how much practice the Paris Eternal would have gotten, and I'm sure they exclusively scrimmed with their double shield tank comp initially.
Sure.
In the last week, and then this week they probably didn't. So wait, was there? Am I misremembering? Did they play?
What?
Wait, did they play week 1 or 2?
They played week 1. They played Toronto in the opener and London on Sunday.
Yeah.
So they're 1-1.
They're 1-1.
My question.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of time. I think. That's actually no. Like the fact that they had one more week,
an extra week that you're not kind of assuming you're calculating for.
Yeah, no. Then it's Paris. I think. Then it's Paris.
Okay. So for a moment, go back to Washington. Put your Washington cap back on.
Yeah.
If we stop Corey, what is your win condition?
As Washington?
Yeah.
So protect the hell out of Corey and support him on the flanks. Maybe they're doing some of their own break stuff. Maybe they're doing other stuff with sidelines where Corey is more supported. It wasn't the case, by the way, for instance, against the Fusion, where Corey a lot of the times was looking for these 1v1s. Just doesn't work that well against Carpe.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I Levote was with him, which definitely helped as well. Like I think that team just puts a lot of resources in Corey. If there are adjustments to that strategy, and also it would be interesting to see how much tape is usable for them from the Paris games because of their double shield tank comp. Yeah, I think a lot of that speaks against Justice here, with the exception that they will get more practice this week. We'll have more access to general tape, how everyone's playing those comps. We'll be able to use it more efficiently because they have more practice time playing at home.
You ready?
Access. Yeah.
Paris has 1 game this weekend.
Sure.
Washington has 2.
But at home.
Yeah, but
yes, they get to play at home.
Unlimited practicing facilities.
And that unlimited practice hopefully is going to be put to good use because London, they have to prepare for London, which is not an easy matchup. That's not something you can just sleep on, because London doesn't look horrible, right? And neither does Paris. So you're putting in double the effort. Paris only has to prepare for you. And they get a buff from Hanbin. And XEI can still pop off. Like we saw him, week 1. Looks very, very good. This is not going to be easy for Justice. And I think that the kind of deck is stacked against them.
Can I go on a quick tangent to just get our clip out for the day? And then...
Yeah.
Okay, you already know the story, but speaking of permanent practice or a lot of practice, there's one team, the Atlanta Reign, that went above and beyond, I think, and it's a great idea. So last year they had like a sprinter where they transported players from their home, whatever, to the venue. Now they repurposed that sprinter, put 12 PPA PCs, so like very good PCs into that, put 12 chairs into that, Overwatch League standard, put 12 tables into that, Overwatch League standard, height and depth, and they're going to drive them around, and the Atlanta Reign will rent out Airbnbs, offering them to upgrade the internet so they can permanently scrim at the location and will not have the issues, for instance, that the Shock faced when we had that Violet Street. I thought that was a genius idea that will allow them to just get so much more practice in. I heard they are not doing it for every home stint, of course, not doing it for the one Europe stint that they're doing. But generally, I think that is actually like, that's more than a small advantage.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually didn't know that it was like an actual vehicle. I thought they just had a kit and they were gonna box it up and ship it around.
No, they have a driver and everything. Yeah.
I think the kit, shipping it around probably makes a little bit more sense. Like, I don't know if you've ever driven on the road before, but people are kind of idiots. So that's one accident away of being out of about $5,000, give or take. And then your whole plan's just kind of kaput. Granted, you could say the same thing about, shipping things on planes and whatnot and trusting, the airfare gods, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's insanely, like, that's what teams should be doing if they want to win. Like if you're just not interested in winning and you kind of want to just play well and market, okay, fine, you don't have to do that. But if you're shooting for a title, this is this type of stuff you should be doing. If you want to be shooting for a title and you know that you're going to be traveling, why not invest in not a doctor, but like the IV treatments? People, like all these celebrities go out and party hard and then come home and then they get like the IV of like the vitamins and they rehydrate. Why not look into that? If you're struggling on getting sick and traveling, like, this is not conducive of a winning a team and forming a winning roster. Keeping them healthy and spending the most money and trying to keep your players healthy, that'd be another area to look into. Team doctors, I'm as much as that's a meme, that might be the next step.
I mean, it's all a thing of resources, but yeah, like
100%,
it's very easy
obviously
to imagine, like if this blows up, we get more resources. Like there's so many avenues where you could improve the system, from improved air travel, like private jets, to like improved practice areas, to more staff, especially like a cook that flies with them maybe, or like an entire staff that just like regular sports teams have. Like we have the model in mind, we just cannot, like feasibly expect that to be the level of spending that a team has.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. I am surprised we aren't seeing more teams trying to figure out real consistent practice situation. I'm not saying that they aren't, but most people that I tend to talk to tend to say like, oh yeah, we're gonna reach out ahead of time and see if there's a LAN center that has some decent computers in that we can use, kind of thing, and we'll just practice from there. And
I think that's probably going to be the bare minimum for the future. I mean, even esports, veteran Sir Scoot's coming out and kind of debating with Hashra about, how the CSGO teams do things, where they rent out an extra hotel room and put PCs in there. They might not be the best. They might not be up to like league standard, but practice is practice. And that kind of says something for how much time you need to put in and how much time these players have been putting in. And then to completely just hamstring that and cut it almost in a severe present, that kind of comes with its own weird stress where it's just like, I'm not practicing. You start to build almost like confidence issues because you don't have the same, you're not allowed the same amount of time to be putting into the game. So you feel rusty. You don't feel like you're practicing. You don't feel on your game because you've been practicing the last 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how long you've been playing, for 8 to 12 hours a day. Now you're practicing 4 hours a day, 3 days a week.
It's a lifestyle thing. Like
It's so big.
I remember going from I was in college, so for me it was like the parallel has always been being a professional musician. So in college, I was a professional musician in Minneapolis, sat in on studios, played in like local things and whatever, and you would do 5 to 10 hours of practice a day, and no problem. You just woke up, you did your thing, it was your routine, it was part of you, and started traveling over summers and non-semester times, and even during the semester sometimes, and all of a sudden your practice goes way down. And it's like, I mean, you play enough of the same things over and over again, there's a second nature to it, right? Where it's like, I don't need to practice the same 12 songs over and over. Like at one point you're just there, but you get rusty, you plateau at the very least. And most of your practice is maintenance, not improvement, right?
Yep.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how teams do it. We are running out of time, though, and we've got 2 more matches to briefly talk about, because we're not going to talk about this one. NYXL versus Houston Outlaws. Congrats, NYXL.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude, but yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. That's it.
But the Toronto Defiant versus the Philadelphia Fusion, I don't want to spend too much time on this one, but I do want to hear who you think is going to win and a brief synopsis as to why. Yiska, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Let me see. So, wait, am I dumb? Yeah. I think this is pretty clearly Philly, right?
Think so too. Joe, do you agree?
Yeah, this is Philly all the way. I think Toronto still has some looks to show. I think it'll be a victory for them if they can keep it close. But outside of that, this should be very convincing, like 70-30, 75, 25 territory. So yeah, not looking good for Toronto.
I think the best thing they had going from them is that they didn't lose to Paris. Right, like that's the best data point I can give at that point. Otherwise, everything else was just okay.
And I'm kind of over the Reaper. No more Reaper, please. No more.
Joe's over.
Yeah,
it.
that's interesting. I also think that stuff will be shut down by like a competent McCree, like Carpe, and
you can't play that passively. That's slowly waiting for Sure Force teleport every push. You have to be a little bit more proactive.
I think this will be a good match, probably like a 3-1 or something like that. But
yeah, Toronto's good enough for one.
I think that's the stuff where Toronto wins the first map, everyone adapts to that type of gimmicky play, and then they get figured out. And
All right, let's go to the last one then. The London Spitfire versus the Washington Justice. Joe.
Oh, Joe, this is almost a question of belief, isn't it?
I can't, as much as I can say, oh, Paris can shut down Corey. There's that, we've talked about that kind of talking point. London does, at least from what we've seen, struggle with very open styles, right? We saw them kind of visibly flustered against Paris. They pull out the Sigma and King's Row. They're constantly just pushing them in. J-Max dying left and right. Didn't look good. I think Washington can do something very similar with Corey. They're going to have a hard time shutting him down, even though, yes, I like Bernard a lot, right? But I think Washington at that point knows, okay, you know what? Corey's getting shut down. We have to find some value elsewhere. I think London's a weak enough team to either, and I don't like using this, but they're going to get inside their own heads by trying to shut down Corey. And if he just shifts gears and just doesn't flank, okay, now you just have Bernard just playing flanks looking for this absent McCree, and he's out of position. So he has to
And
shift
you
gears.
need
So it's just,
Bernard. You need Bernard in your fights because J-Mac isn't
he
going to hold
just
that
doesn't
down.
exist.
He's just, and that's the thing, right? I think if you imagine like they kept Gesture.
I don't think to be completely honest, I don't know that it's that much better.
You don't think so? Huh.
I really don't know. Not on Ryan. Ryan was
I
definitely
guess
his
that's
dude.
fair.
It's his weakest hero.
Macaroons, dude.
I mean,
It is,
definitely
I don't know,
isn't.
man. I think maybe I'm not giving J-Mac enough credit. Or
It's better.
Gesture too
I don't
much
know
credit.
if it's that much better.
I at least know that I don't know. I just like there's
It'd be a different story if we could play Orisa, Sigma.
There's no confidence. There's no like survivability at the main tank role for London right
100%.
now.
Totally.
And once your main tank's down and you've got a flanking diva, it's open season.
Yep. You're clicking heads at that point. So yeah, this is a Justice win. I'm interested to see how London reacts to this. Kind of narratively very similar to Toronto. I want to see London at least take a map. If they can't take a map, then we've got some questions, and it's going to be a fine tooth comb to figure out, okay, what is London really doing? Babel, rookie, looks okay, but is starting to fall in stocks. J-Mac absolutely feeding his pants off, pants on head type stuff. Bernard and Glister are trying to drag this team kicking and screaming over the line, and it's getting pretty heavy.
Yiska, do you think that Agape and Pavane have something that the coaching gods have something in their back?
Like, what can you do? What do you do?
I want to, dude. Like, I think Bernard has what it takes to shut down Corey.
Sure, but
I agree.
the rest of that team,
a lot of
pretty
it.
tragic.
I mean, the thing is, can Glister theoretically has more pop-off potential than Corey. Let's just get it out of the way. He's more mechanically advanced. Oh my god, you're going to hate me for that comment. Glister is probably like at least like Carpe level popping off if he actually is on top of his game, which he wasn't so far, and I can understand that nobody buys that now. What he did in Contender's career was unprecedented, like bullshit aim. Like absolutely insane. So I think I try to talk myself into having like a spicy pick here, but overall I think it's still
I wanted this to be my
Justice our favorite, yeah.
But I also don't want Justice to be our new uprising on the show. We're just like
no.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Justice definitely won't be.
I mean, in the sense that we just always pick against them. We always find excuses for them to lose.
I mean, we'll revisit this, come, week, whatever, down the road. And if we're still betting against them, maybe there's a reason for it. Or maybe it's just because we haven't seen them all that much. We saw them against, two teams, one where they should have lost, they lost, one where they should have won, they won. Okay. Everything's kind of panning out. We seem to have a pretty good read on where they're sitting, at least after we saw them play. I'm pretty confident in both of these picks, but I'll be happy to be upset because, again, they're playing at home. We want these home crowns to work. So wins at home are definitely not something I'm upset with.
Sure. Yeah, this is that one could be a fun one though. I think that there are some of these like cool like outside worlds. Like what if for some reason Justice can't adjust to somebody really pressuring Corey? I totally agree that Bernard is probably one of the most competent divas in being able to do that. At least from what we've seen so far, which admittedly is a small sample size, but still. It's going to be exciting to see. There you have our picks for the week. We do have to get out of here though. It's time. We got a little long. I'm losing. I've lost a step since not hosting on Monday. We can't keep things under wraps here, but we're going to get out of here. Big thank you to everybody who hung out today in chat. Y'all are the bomb. Just a quick reminder, bit.ly/race the mayhem. Pledge a healthy goal per mayhem win. We'd love to compete with you. Get some cool merch and stuff too. Rep it. Be proud. Other than that, Yiska, shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
As always, at Yiska, I'll check out GG Recon. I'm a little late, but it's because it's a lot. I got another Too Long Didn't Watch that I'm currently making. I'll probably, like, I'm not going to write every detail of how Outlaws got boned by Washington, right? I'm just going to give you a synthesis of like 400 words, and I'll be done with it. Probably the same for Mayhem against Philly, and then the others I broke down a little more in detail.
Sweet. Joe, what about you, man?
Very similar. Follow me on the socials at Volamel. That's Volamel. This week, I'm currently working on a hero pools kind of prediction think piece. I randomized a couple hero pools based on what we've seen so far in terms of pick rate. Have kind of basically going to give examples, talk about how each hero pool might work, and then come to some conclusions to prepare for next month, because that's when we get hero pools. And then probably going to be writing something about the New York Fusion game, and that'll probably close out my content week, and then alternate Overwatch history on the weekend.
Cool. Awesome. As for me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, especially if you want to see my Race to the Mayhem progress. I'm going to be posting more things there for sure. Other than that, thank you everybody for hanging out for episode 78. Don't forget our patron game night is going to be on Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/KickedTripod. We do have some new patrons. Hunter Tane, Pork Chop Sammy, brand new patron producer, Sir Girthalot, Rimo, and Sarah.
What a name.
Girthalot.
That's what I'm talking about.
Sir Girthalot. Thank you all for joining up with the Patreon. We really appreciate it. Hope to see you for a game night on Friday. And also, if you're ever watching the games and you need a cool place to chill, Yiska, you can go. Don't worry. You just
Okay,
go.
okay.
You can just go. Yiska has to go to the bathroom really bad. He's like, guys, I gotta go. I'm gonna need a couple minutes after. Just go. But yeah, big thank you to all of you, as well as X Lakota, who I believe Blue met at the NYXL homestand.
Yep.
They're a listener of the show and left a 5-star review, and thanked you, Blue. So thank you for that 5-star review. If you want to support the show, but maybe don't want to do it via Patreon or the subs on Twitter or Twitch, you can just go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. I get a notification that you left one a couple days after you leave a message. You have to leave a message with that 5-star review, and we'll thank you on the show. Other than that, we're out of here, guys. Thank you so much for hanging, and we will be back for a brief post show right after this.